In our, we have said we have two types of coordination in our bodies, nervous and endocrine responses. But the two can either function independently or together. For endocrine response, we have said the main factors, the main playing factors are mainly two. We have the glands and then we have the hormones. The glands are stimulated to release hormones. So it is those hormones that will diffuse in blood, and in the process, after diffusion in blood, they'll bind to the receptors on the target cell. In this case, the target cell is the receptor, and in the process, the activity of the receptor cell changes. When the activity of receptor cell changes, then we call that one as the response, or that what it entails, the response. We have looked at examples of glands and the type of hormones they produce and the function of those hormones. Our list is long, it's not exhausted, but there is one major thing that we have found out. We have a very important gland called the pituitary gland. If you go back to your table, you realize that it is stimulating, it is directing other glands so that those glands can now secrete hormones. Those hormones will now change the activity of other parts of the body or other structures of the body. So you realize that the master gland, because of role of stimulating other glands, and those glands now secreting hormones that will control activities of other cells, or what we call the receptor cells, we say that the master gland is the pituitary gland is a master gland. It's a master gland because it is controlling activities of other glands. So our list is exhaustive enough. We had looked at several. We had looked at pituitary gland, adrenal gland, thyroid gland, pancreas, and then now ovaries. So in our very last bit, we looked at the ovaries. I said that the ovaries, the major role is to produce ovum or ovum, but it also secretes hormones. The two major hormones are estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen mainly is the one that influences development of secondary sexual characteristics in female human beings. For instance, development of the breasts, development or increase in size of the hips is the one that sets on the menstrual cycle. And you realize that these secondary characteristics usually begins to appear at the level of, or the stage of puberty. Then we have progesterone. Progesterone, the major role is to maintain pregnancy. So you realize that we shall have high concentration of progesterone when one is pregnant, so that that pregnant can be maintained until the 9 months or the 9th month. So you realize that at the 9th month or approaching the 9th month, the level of progesterone in blood usually decreases, so that it can now allow expulsion of the fetus, or what we call birth. So we want to move on, but we say that progesterone maintains pregnancy in two ways: by increasing blood supply, increased vascularization of the endometrium, and also thickening, causing thickening of the endometrium, so that now implantation of the embryo can take place. So I want to move on. Gland number 6, testes. So there are two ways to write this, but it depends which. If there are many, plural form, then singular form. Testes. Testes, majorly, it is it plays a role in the reproductive system by producing sperm. But also as an endocrine gland, it secretes a hormone called testosterone. Testosterone. So the major function or the major roles of testosterone is the one that influences development of secondary sexual characteristic in males. Influences development of secondary sexual characteristics in males. You can give examples of this. When a boy is growing, there are some things that will happen or develop on the body at puberty, e.g., breaking of the voice, deepening. Of voice. The shoulders will become broadening of shoulders, and several others like development of pubic hairs. The growth of the pubic hairs. So just like in females, we are looking at testes as the source of testosterone, which will now influence the development of secondary sexual characteristics, which means if testes are interfered early in life, at age 5, age 7, before development of these characteristics, if it is surgically removed along that age, these characteristics are not going to develop because the source of testosterone will have been removed. Another role is to influence the development of sperms. Formation of sperms. So it is important for formation of sperms. So you realize that the peak time when testosterone will be released in males is during puberty. The other hormone is human chorionic gonadotropic hormone. Human chorionic gonadotropic trophin hormone. Other is called HCGH. I think it is supposed to be here, the hormone. So the gland is uterus. Sorry for that. Gland is uterus, but the hormone is human chorionic gonadotrophin hormone. HCGTH. HCGH, not T. So the major role of HCGH, human chorionic gonadotrophin hormone, is to stimulate development of endometrium. Now, usually endometrium is present in the uterus, but immediately after fertilization, there will be a formation of a zygote and development and formation of the embryo, but that embryo has to be implanted in the uterus. The uterus alone, the way it is, without any further development, cannot receive the embryo to allow for formation of the pregnancy or for carrying of the pregnancy up to the 9th month. So the endometrium of the uterus is supposed to develop, but that one will happen under the influence of a hormone secreted by uterus, human chorionic gonadotrophin hormone. Is the one that will lead to development or increased development of the endometrium in preparation to implantation. Otherwise, the embryo will just slough off or will get out of the reproductive system. So for it to be maintained or to find a place for attachment for implantation, endometrium must be ready for that. Now, later on, progesterone will come in to increase thickness of the endometrium and also increase blood supply of the endometrium. We call that one as vascularization. Number 7, we have several. We also have the stomach wall. Stomach wall does not just function in the digestive roles alone, but when food reaches the stomach walls will be stimulated. When stomach walls are stimulated, it usually releases a hormone called gastrin hormone. So a hormone will be released. That gastrin hormone from the stomach will now stimulate cells on the stomach walls, specifically cells called peptic cells. So stimulates peptic cells, which will now secrete gastric juice, which will stimulate peptic cells in the stomach walls to secrete gastric juice. The other structure that also acts as a gland is small intestines. Small intestinal walls. When food arrives from the stomach or from the duodenum in form of chyme, it will flow into the small intestines. In the small intestine, it's going to stimulate the small intestine or the walls of the small intestine to secrete from the stomach to secrete a hormone called secretin. So food has come from the stomach in form of chyme. It gets into the small intestines. Remember, small intestines is divided into several other 3 portions. We have duodenum, ileum, and the jejunum. So all of it will be involved. So once it arrives, food arrives in the small intestine, a hormone called secretin will be produced. Secretin will now stimulate the pancreas. Stimulates pancreas. To secrete, you can remember what pancreas secretes in the digestive system, pancreatic juice. To secrete pancreatic juice. So it is this juice that has enzymes, what we call pancreatic enzymes. It has those enzymes, pancreatic enzymes. I think we have covered most of the glands. So once you know the gland, the hormone that is produced, and the role it produces, then it gives us a pedestal point, or it gives us an advantage on understanding the role of the endocrine system. But I want us to use a question just to choke our mind, so that to find out, have we understood what we have gone through? So this is, we are going to have 1, 2, or 3 questions on the same questions. Question 1. The diagram below shows pituitary gland and some of its hormones. And some of its hormones. So because of space, again, I'll just erase this part to get more space. So our pituitary gland will be here. And this side, we have hypothalamus here. So that hypothalamus will release hormones. So there's a coordination between the nervous system and the endocrine system via hypothalamus. Then we have here adrenal glands. We have 2 hormones, X, Y. And then we have another hormone here. We shall label it as P. We have a hormone here that acts on bones and cells. Bones, cartilage, and cells. It will give me that hormone. You'll give the name there. Nerve impulse. So from this diagram, even before we go very far, there's a relationship between the nervous system and the endocrine system. So there could be a relation through release of hormones to pituitary gland, which will now release hormones to other glands, or through a nerve impulse, like to adrenal gland, so that now it releases hormone X and Y. We have a hormone here, a hormone there. Then we have a hormone here and another hormone there. These 2 ovaries. And then to the testes. So testes will release a hormone, hormone A. And the ovaries will release 2 hormones, B and C. Then we have a hormone, antidiuretic. You'll tell me the kind of structure it acts on. Antidiuretic. we have a structure E. Inaonekana C. Yeah. So we have another hormone, two hormones, Q and R. So I want us to go through this and label the hormones where we have the structure that should be labeled. We should be able to give. There is one I've not shown. There's a hormone called thyroxine. I'll use this. Thyroxine hormone. So we have a structure here, or the effector organ, on which thyroxine hormone will cause response. Let me call it F. So the flowchart is trying to relate slightly nervous system and endocrine system. But because we have mentioned something about pituitary gland, that's why we must just go through it again and try to remember everything about it. Although we have left other hormones like prolactin, like oxytocin. But we can go through the flowchart. So the question that I want us to answer is this: label the parts that have been given the letters. Label the parts. Denoted by letters. So we can begin from here. Hypothalamus will release hormones. After maybe a change in the environment, it will stimulate pituitary gland, which will start releasing some hormones. So you have a hormone released by pituitary gland that will now have an effect on adrenal gland. But remember, the hormones are never directly released to the glands. They just diffuse in blood. And then when they reach the target cell, the receptors are the one that will now be able to differentiate that this is the hormone meant for this receptor cell or effector. So suppose pituitary gland releases hormone into blood. That hormone could be P, and then it's able to be compatible with the receptors on adrenal gland, and then it will act on adrenal gland, not any other organ, because the receptors meant for that hormone P are located in the cells of adrenal gland. So we have a hormone here, P, that will act on adrenal gland. What's the name of that hormone? Now, if you go to the table, you can easily check and find out the hormone. That hormone, we called it as adrenocorticotropic hormone. Adrenocorticotropic hormone. Now, two hormones that are secreted by adrenaline, by adrenal glands. One of them I've already said, adrenaline hormone. You can remember the role of adrenaline hormone for fight or flight by increasing blood supply to skeletal muscles, increased rate of breathing, and so many others. Conversion of glycogen, causing conversion of glycogen from skeletal muscles and liver into glucose. We have another hormone, aldosterone. Aldosterone, sometimes called cortisone hormone. Aldosterone, again, you can remember that is the one that's involved in regulation of ions, specifically sodium ions and chloride ions. And then pituitary gland is releasing a hormone that acts on bones, cartilage, and cells. What is the name of that hormone? From your table, you can check the name of the hormone. I hope you have found out that that hormone, which will stimulate growth of bones, cartilage, and development of cells, is called human growth hormones. Human growth hormone. So we can just abbreviate human growth hormone. And then we have a hormone that acts directly to the testes, so that the testes can now release something. Then the ovaries can release other hormones. So we have QR. For Q that will act on both, there's an arrow going this direction and another direction. For testis is luteinizing hormone. But that hormone again can cause an influence on the ovaries. I'll use abbreviation. And then we also have follicle stimulating hormone. Remember the role of follicle stimulating hormone on ovaries. Follicle stimulating hormone on ovaries. One was to cause development or maturation of follicles so that they can now release ova. Luteinizing hormone on ovaries, it causes ovulation. Follicle stimulating maturation to form ova. Luteinizing hormone, release of the ova. Ova is already there. But for the ovaries to release the ova or ovum, it will be under the influence of luteinizing hormone. But for testes, or for testes to release another hormone that you are going to find out, it is under the influence of luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. So here we can easily label this part A. Hormone secreted by testes. It begins with the same wording, testosterone. Testosterone. We have found out the role of testosterone. It influences development of male secondary sexual characteristic. We have given examples. You can always check. Then we have another hormone secreted by ovaries. We have two hormones secreted by ovaries. One, we said estrogen. And then the other hormone was progesterone. Or progesterone. So estrogen, we have looked at the roles of estrogen. It's the one that influences development of the ovaries, and other secondary sexual characteristics. Progesterone maintains pregnancy. Thyroxine hormone has an influence on a structure F, which is the gland. That gland, we give it a name, thyroid gland, that is, thyroid gland. It is thyroid stimulating hormone, not thyroxine. So here is supposed to be thyroid stimulating hormone. It's the one that's secreted by pituitary gland, which will act on thyroid gland. And then now thyroid gland will secrete a hormone. That hormone is called thyroxine. Antidiuretic hormone from pituitary gland. What is the structure? Structure is the kidney. So this map or concept map that we have just built can help you understand why pituitary gland is called a master gland. We have used a question just to summarize the role of pituitary gland, but in relationship to other glands. One gland that is being directed, adrenal gland. We have a gland testis, a gland ovary, a gland thyroid gland. Now it secretes hormone. They are secreting hormone, secreting hormone, secreting hormone. Therefore, pituitary gland is referred to as a master gland. So that was question 1. Let us look at other questions. Question 2, explain why pituitary gland is referred to as a master pituitary gland is referred to as a master gland. We have seen, we can be able to answer this question now. Why pituitary gland is called a master gland? We have seen that it is secreting many hormones. And those hormones are the ones that are controlling. Those hormones control activities of other glands. So as simple as that. It secretes many hormones. We have seen many hormones like adrenocorticotropic hormone. Many hormones which influences or which stimulates other glands to secrete hormones. And these hormones will now influence the activities of the body, which will then influence activities of the body. Now we can't labor this point because it has already been explained in our first question. Question number 3. Some people suffer from gigantism. Some people suffer from gigantism, while others suffer from dwarfism. Explain what hormone is involved. Which hormone is involved in these conditions? So, for you to get the question properly, you have to understand that the two conditions are conditions due to growth. So which hormone is affecting growth? We have mentioned one major hormone produced by the pituitary gland, human growth hormone. So the hormone is called human growth hormone. So if this hormone is produced in high concentration, too high, if it is too high, maybe pituitary gland is stimulated and it produces too high concentration of the same, too high concentration of the growth hormone, it will lead to gigantism. But too low concentration of the same is going to lead to dwarfism. So this one is very easy to understand. Question number 4. From the diagram, from the diagram, can you suggest why hypothalamus? Can you suggest why hypothalamus is important in coordination of the body? Why hypothalamus is important in coordination of the body. Now from the diagram you have seen that hypothalamus can be able to release hormone. When it detects a stimuli, it can detect a stimuli, and in the process it sends hormones to pituitary gland. Pituitary gland will now be stimulated to release so many other hormones depending on the type of stimuli. So it is, one reason is that it detects stimuli. It's able to detect a stimuli and sends and releases hormones. So it will detect a stimuli and release hormone to pituitary gland. Pituitary gland, which will then release hormones depending on the stimuli. Depending on the stimulus. Now what's the meaning of this? Hypothalamus has detected a stimuli. Let us give an example. Like the stimuli is, like for instance, let us look at an example for ADH. The stimuli is that there is high or there is low osmotic pressure. The body fluid is experiencing low osmotic pressure, which means we have more water in the body. You have taken in a lot of water, maybe through yourself, or maybe you are drowning, or maybe there was a party somewhere, you took a lot of soft drinks. Hypothalamus will be the first one to detect that. So the stimuli will be low osmotic pressure. And then it will release a hormone to pituitary gland. So hypothalamus has detected low osmotic pressure in blood. It detects the stimuli, releases a hormone to pituitary gland. Pituitary gland will now release a hormone that will regulate amount of water in the body. That hormone is ADH, Antidiuretic Hormone, which will be targeting the kidney tubules. The kidney tubules will now be able to reabsorb most of the water from the blood and then form urine. That's why you'll be able to urinate more frequent when you take more of the soft drinks, so something like that. So a stimuli has been detected by hypothalamus, releases a hormone to pituitary gland. Pituitary gland releases another hormone, ADH. ADH acts on the kidney tubules, and in the process there'll be high production of dilute urine. And then another way in which hypothalamus is involved in coordination of the body. If you look at the diagram, we have a line flowing from hypothalamus to adrenal gland. Sometimes instead of releasing a hormone, hypothalamus can release a nerve impulse directly to the gland. And in this case, in our diagram, we have adrenal gland. Adrenal gland will now release hormones, adrenaline and aldosterone. So we can say that it also, hypothalamus also sends impulses, nerve impulses to glands, which then releases hormones. A very good example is that one of adrenal gland, e.g. an impulse to adrenal gland to secrete adrenaline hormone. Now look at this scenario. You are walking maybe in a wild place, and then you encounter hyena. You are not able to, you don't know what to do. So there will be some thought process first. That message will be sent to the brain, a specific part of the brain, the cerebrum. But now cerebrum, together with the hypothalamus, they will come out or come up with a motor response. That motor response will be sent to adrenal gland. Hypothalamus sends an impulse to adrenal gland, and in the process, adrenal gland will secrete adrenaline hormone. Remember, adrenaline hormone is for fight or flight. So you'll make a decision to fight or flight depending on what you're able to do. So you either run away or decide to brave the lion and fight it. If it is in Kenya, you could be a Masai Moran who has all the tools for fighting the lion. And in the process, you might either kill it or you can run away. Even climbing a tree could be another possibility. The last question, backing up. Question number 5. Explain why pituitary gland, not pituitary, pancreas is referred to as a dual organ. Dual organ. Now we have come across this during our lesson. We just find out why pancreas could be a dual organ. In other words, it's able to perform two roles. In other previous lessons, we found out that pancreas in the digestive system secretes enzymes. We were calling them pancreatic enzymes. We know the role of those enzymes. And then in our today's lesson, we have also found out that pancreas secretes two types of hormones. We have insulin and glucagon, meant for sugar regulation. So because of that purpose, pancreas can be referred to as a dual organ because it's involved in digestion, and also it is involved in the endocrine system. So we can easily refer to it as a dual organ. So because one, it secretes enzymes in the digestive system, pancreas pancreas secretes pancreatic juice, and in this juice we have pancreatic enzymes. So these enzymes aid or help in digestion. You can go further and give examples, e.g., we have several of them. Pancreatic amylase. Remember the role of amylase? It breaks down starch to maltose. Pancreatic lipase. It breaks down lipid fats into fatty acids. And glycerol. We have trypsin, pancreatic trypsin. The one that breaks down proteins into peptides. So in this case, pancreas is performing the first role as an organ that secretes enzymes. And you can see the enzymes, amylase, lipase, and trypsin. Then in another situation, pancreas is also acting as an endocrine gland. Also acts as an endocrine gland. Why does it act like an endocrine gland? Because it's able to secrete enzymes, secretes hormones. Because secretes hormones involved in sugar regulation. Now you can go ahead and give examples. Hormones involved in sugar regulation, e.g., we have two of them. We have mentioned one, insulin. Insulin lowers sugar level to normal. Blood sugar, not just sugar. Now the emphasis is blood sugar or glucose, blood glucose, blood sugar. You can't just say sugar. It could be sugar in a cup of tea. Lowers blood sugar to normal. And then we have glucagon. I've said in a previous lesson that glucagon is antagonistic to insulin. In other words, it acts in an opposite direction to insulin. So in this case, if it lowers, then glucagon will raise. Raises blood sugar to normal. So that's why it's called a dual organ. The last question on this, before the second last, that is, second last, question 6. Question 6, explain why when duct to pancreas. When a duct to pancreas, duct is that tube that leads from the pancreas. When duct to pancreas is severed, control or regulation of blood sugar, regulation of blood sugar is impaired. Is impaired. Is not impaired, not impaired. Is not impaired. While digestion of starch is impaired. So you go through the question, explain why when duct 2 pancreas is severed, maybe if it is cut, regulation of blood sugar is not impaired, while digestion of starch will be impaired. In other words, regulation of blood sugar will not be interfered with, while digestion of starch is going to be interfered with. What could be the reason? Now, for us to get that answer, we go back to our question number 5. We have said pancreas performs 2 roles, dual organ, regulation of blood sugar and also digestion. But for regulation of blood sugar is under the influence of hormones. You can name the hormones glucagon and insulin. Digestion of starch starts from the mouth in the duodenum is due to pancreatic amylase. So if this is the pancreas and you cut this, remember there's a position, this is maybe duodenum. If you cut this point, release of pancreatic juice will not be able to reach the duodenum. So there will be a problem in digestion of starch because that enzyme amylase cannot reach duodenum. But if it is for blood sugar, it will continue normally. Why? Because for these hormones, they don't have to follow this duct. They just diffuse into blood. If there is any vessel supplying either supplying and getting blood away from the pancreas, those hormones that control blood sugar will just diffuse in blood, and then they will be transported to the target organ, and that target organ is the liver, and regulation of sugar will continue as normal, as if nothing has happened. So severing or cutting of the duct cannot interfere with regulation of blood sugar, since hormones glucagon and insulin simply diffuse into blood and is transported to the liver. So they don't need this duct. Whether it is there or not, it doesn't matter. But for starch to be digested, that duct must be there to allow the enzymes to reach duodenum, or pancreatic juice to reach duodenum, so that now the amylase can be able to act on starch. So we, as a note, to make a note, we say hormones involved in sugar regulation, diffuse into blood and are transported to the liver. Are transported to the liver, where they'll cause the action, and transported to the liver for appropriate response. So it doesn't matter whether the duct is there or not. Still the hormones will reach the liver, diffuses in blood and then transported to the liver. But for pancreatic juice to get to the duodenum, it has to go through the duct. So cutting of the duct will interfere with the supply of pancreatic juice to the duodenum. So cutting or severing the duct stops release of pancreatic juice. You can say stops or blocks release of pancreatic juice or pancreatic enzymes into duodenum. So if this happens, severing of the ducts blocks release of pancreatic juice into the duodenum, therefore starch digestion will be interfered with. Is impaired, interfered with. Then the very last question, it could be long. Ingapi? It's a long question. Hiyo ni mrefu bwana. Ni kadebu. Mbili, wachana tunaye. Hii nitakuja. So, I think through these questions, we have been able to understand even better the roles of hormones, why they are produced, and how endocrine system can work together with the nervous system. So at your own time, you can even explore very many other hormones. You just go to internet, Google in hormones in human beings. It will give you a range of them and their roles. So you can always top up this information through your school library and also through the internet. So I hope you have enjoyed the lesson. Welcome even more for more lessons in future. Thank you.